Welcome to the Bywords Show. I'm your host, Hannah Hughes. Bywords is all about equipping women for purposeful living by starting conversations, celebrating stories, and inspiring faith. In a world that applauds the hustle, I'm here to help you break free from the lies and come back to what really matters. It's time to get real, get rooted in truth, and come alive in relationship with Jesus so you can show up to each day with intention and confidence no matter where you're at in your story. Here we believe that embracing our stories brings hope, healing, and purpose to the process, and sharing our stories helps others do the same. Whether you're looking for a midweek faith refresh, practical tools for pursuing your dreams, or just need some good old-fashioned girl talk, you're in the right place. Grab your latte and let's dive in. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Bywords Show. I'm so glad you're here today. Today is the day. We're talking about it. Finally, I've mentioned in so many episodes this year that one of my goals for 2024 is to prioritize getting better sleep, prioritizing rest, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, spirit, soul, and body rest. And I just decided it's time. We are doing a dedicated episode to sleep and prioritizing rest. It has honestly been such a huge transformation for me in my own life this year, just even learning about these things. And so I'm excited to share with you what I've learned so far and some of the things that I'm continuing to learn about and challenge myself with and implement in my own life. And hopefully it'll be really encouraging for you as well. So before we dive in, I would love to pause really quickly and ask a huge favor of you. If you are a loyal listener of the Bywords Show, or maybe if it's even your first time here, if you love the show, would you just pause for a quick second, scroll right down to wherever you're listening, leave a written review and rating. It just helps so much for the show to reach more women, and it just means so much to me. So thank you in advance for leaving a review and sharing the episode with people that you love and just passing around the encouragement, spreading the love. It's the best. I honestly think that we have the best community of women over here, and I'm just so grateful that you're a part of it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's dive into today's episode. For today's episode, I'm going to be pulling from a few resources that I have used this year in my own journey of learning about sleep and rest. A couple main resources that I would recommend if you want to dive into this topic more and study for yourself. The first one is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I really loved this book. It was super fascinating. I actually listened to it on audiobook, but it was so interesting hearing everything that they said about sleep. They've done so many studies over the past several years because for a long time, they couldn't figure out scientifically what the purpose of sleep was. And so in recent years, they've really uncovered a lot about the science behind what our body does while we're sleeping, why we need sleep, our design, and how sleep is a part of our optimal health. And it was just really interesting. It was also crazy learning things about what happens when we don't get enough sleep and what happens when our sleep is interrupted and things like that. It was really cool. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty of the science behind sleep, that's a great resource that I would definitely recommend. And then also a newer book from this year, Jess Connolly's book, Tired of Being Tired, is so good. It's such a good, practical, encouraging resource for women who just feel exhausted in every area. She touches on spiritual exhaustion, physical exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, and what we can do about that. And she really ties in God's design for rest, which I think is really beautiful and something that I'm so excited more women are talking about because I feel like it's catching up to us. Our lack of rest, our lack of quality sleep, it's catching up to us in this generation. I don't know about y'all, but for me, I've just realized the effects are not so great whenever I'm not prioritizing those things. So that is an excellent book if you want to get more into the practical side without getting so sciencey, while also having some spiritual truth to encourage you as well. And then there are a couple other things that I'll recommend, and I'll make sure these are all linked for you guys in the show notes as well if you want to go and check out these things that I'm mentioning. But the Daily Grace Co., of course, y'all know, my favorite Bible study tools and devotionals. They've got a few studies on rest as well as blog posts. They even have a men's version of their rest study. It's so good. Can't recommend them enough. And then also, I wish that I had it in front of me so that I could pull some of the information from this Bible study. But Breathe by Priscilla Shirer is one of the best Bible studies I've ever done and have ever studied about the topic of rest. I did it several years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, but it is so good. And she even talks about how in the creation sequence in Genesis, God creates a habitat for the thing that he's created. So rest actually ends up being the habitat that human beings were meant to inhabit and live in and operate in, which I just think is So incredibly cool. I had never thought about it that way. So, again, there's so much to this, and I'm going to try to make this really practical and streamlined for us today so that I don't overwhelm you with information. But like I said, this has been an ongoing journey for me in my own life, a long process of me learning and unlearning things so that I can prioritize better rest and sleep in my life so that I can just feel better, not just physically, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and get well holistically and really be able to operate the way that God designed for us to. Y'all know, and I said this in the Summer Fun episode recently, if we are not well rested, it's going to be to your detriment, okay, friend? It's going to be affecting the way that you're able to experience joy in your life, the way you're able to show up in your relationships, the way you're going to be able to do your work. Like, it's going to affect all those areas, your parenting, your marriage, your mental health, even, which has been a big part of the reason behind why I have pursued this path of research for so long. So it's important, okay? That's the gist of it, is it's important. And I want to tell you why and then tell you what we can do to better support this, okay? So let's get into it. So as we're getting started, let's just start with the facts. I love facts. I love data. I love research. I'm a research gal. I love to know. I love to understand why things work, how things work. And I don't know, it just helps me feel empowered when I understand why and more motivated. So I really, like I said, enjoyed doing the research of the scientific and biological side of this. So let's just dive into a little bit about why sleep matters from a scientific stance. So, first of all, the role of sleep in maintaining physical health and brain function is critical. Like, it's so crucial for our brain health. Something that I've learned in the past few years is that rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, is incredibly important for processing what's going on in our brain. So our thought life and, cataloging what's going on in our mental library on a day-to-day basis. It's so important to get sleep because that's when your brain is sorting through that information. I remember I touched on this a little bit too in the episode, I think it's called Things I Learned in Therapy, but when I was learning about EMDR and, rapid eye movement and processing, getting yourself into a place where your brain can actually process those thoughts, it's wild that that's how God designed it. But really, while we're sleeping, our brain is doing just that. So we are processing the subconscious things that we weren't able to get to in the day, or things that are just going on beneath the surface. So that's why getting really good sleep is important for our mental health and also our physical health, because it's all connected, y'all. Like, if you haven't read The Body Keeps the Score, or haven't really done a dive into the world of how your body holds trauma and pain and, the weight of what's going on in your mind, it's all connected. It's crazy. It's really cool. But basically, when we don't process those things, it weighs on us. It kind of bogs us down. It can contribute to brain fog. Again, I'm not a scientist. You can go into these books if you want to get the whole gist. But really, it does so much for us. And that's one huge piece that I've taken away from this scientifically, is that not only does it help our body to refuel and recharge, restore, helps us to have time for our systems to process what they need to process, whether it's digestion, rest and digest can happen, regenerating cells, whether it's on our skin, inside, all of that is so critical. And same for our mental health. And then also the God-given nature of our need for rest, as in the creation story, is just such a beautiful part of how God modeled for us from the very beginning that rest is not a bad thing. It's not a sign of weakness. It shows that he is looking after us. And it also points back to our dependence on him. Our need for sleep, our need for rest is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign that we were created with a divine design, a need for dependence on God, a need to slow down. It's built into our rhythm. It's built into the way he created us. And it is good. That's something that Jess Connolly talks about in her book, Tired of Being Tired, is we've got to recognize our limits, because when we don't recognize our limits and we keep pushing ourselves further and further and further, that's what leads to burnout. So if we are able to proactively create rhythms in our life where we are implementing rest, where we are making sure we're getting good sleep, it can protect us from those things like burnout. It can protect us from, a lot of the mental distress that we sometimes feel. And even for me, a big reason that I started this journey of learning about sleep and rest for me is because I have been on antidepressants for a while now. I would say it started like during my miscarriages a year or so ago. And I am just at a point where I'm ready to transition off. Like, I feel I feel good at a place of healing in my journey physically and also mentally and emotionally, that I am ready to take that step and start transitioning. So I was talking to my counselor about it, and she was just saying that if I want to be able to transition off of medication and be in a really good place where I can sustain the healing that I have processed to this point, two things that I need to do are making sure that I am moving my body, like staying active, taking care of myself, and nourishing my body as much as I can. And then also getting good sleep. She was like, those two things, if you're not moving your body and getting good rest, like that's going to throw a wrench in your plans. That'll be like one of the quickest ways you come back to feeling like you're at rock bottom if you're not taking care of yourself in those areas. And so for me, I just was like, okay, well, that's enough reason for me to take this seriously, because I've just seen the patterns in my own life when I have not honored my body or my mind's need for rest. And I've continued to plow through, push through. And it's just not a good story. It's not a good ending. When I do that, it doesn't help me. It doesn't help anybody when we are exhausted and burnt out that way. So, God's design for us to need rest is a good thing. It's a healthy thing. It is designed for us out of his love for us, and a reminder that we are not all powerful beings. We are dependent on him. We are limited, and that's actually a gift. And what I mean by it being a gift is that what happens to our bodies and our minds when we sleep, and what happens when we don't prioritize or honor the space we need for that, it really is getting in the way of more than just us feeling rested physically. You know what I mean? We actually are robbing ourselves of a really important and beautiful gift when we are not getting good sleep or not prioritizing rest in our lives, because the way God designed rest is such a restorative experience and something that refreshes us in a way that nothing else can, which is the crazy part, because it's like, we're sleeping. Like, it's just hours that for some people can feel wasted. Let me just read you some of the benefits of sleep from the scientific and biological side. Okay, so it helps your heart health, it supports weight management, it helps combat germs and supports your immune system and keeping it strong. It reduces the risk of injury, it increases your attention span, it boosts memory and learning. When we sleep, we're processing that information, and so it helps us to learn. It helps us kind of like digest and let everything from the day sink in. It helps reduce and manage stress levels, which is a huge one for me, like especially as I'm healing my body, healing my hormones, and trying to manage my stress levels. I have to prioritize good sleep, because if we don't, it can cause a lot of not great side effects. It can cause inflammation. It can cause difficulty with concentrating, remembering things, make it hard to learn and take in new information. It can make it hard to focus. It can affect your emotions, of course. Like, for sure, it can make you frustrated, cranky, more anxious, more stressed. It can lead to mood swings. It can contribute to mental health issues like depression, sadness, lack of motivation. It can, affect your behavior. It can cause poor decision making. And then, of course, physically, it can lead to all kinds of things like poor balance and coordination. It can affect your appetite. It can weaken your immune system and make you more susceptible to infections, as well as heart disease, kidney failure, high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, obesity, depression. It's linked to all kinds of things that are just not great, which is why it's crazy to me that we don't take it seriously, that we actually need to prioritize good sleep. And I get it. Like, we live in a society that praises the hustle, fast paced living, staying up late to get things done, especially once kids are asleep. Like, there are a lot of working moms now who are staying up late, finishing projects when kids are in bed and putting off sleep, and really letting rest be what's sacrificed to the detriment of these other things that are actually really, really important. And what really hit me this year as I was going through this process of learning about my body, learning about sleep, and how the two really work together holistically, like from a spirit, soul, body stance, it is going to catch up to us, really, is what I realized. If I don't prioritize getting rest and good sleep now, the effects are going to stack up and catch up to us later on in life. And I personally don't want that. And I don't think you should either. And it's just unfortunate that a lot of the times we don't realize that we've missed out on the rest until we are so exhausted or burnt out that there's no other option. And I'm sure you've seen it before, or maybe you've even experienced it yourself, where sometimes when people put off resting or sleep, their body will start to respond to that. They'll start getting sick. They'll start, feeling like they physically cannot do what they need to do. And that's actually what's happening in your body. Your body is trying to tell you to slow down. It will try to tell you in any way that it can that you need rest. You've got to slow your pace. You've got to acknowledge your limits. You've got to do something to give your mind some space to process and your body some time to restore. There's actually a verse in the Psalms, 127, verse 2. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick. This is so good. It says, "It's useless for you to work so hard from early morning until late at night, anxiously working for food to eat. For God gives rest to his loved ones." We've just got to change our perspective on rest, because I think the fact that our society has started to view rest as laziness or confused it with weakness, that is not correct. It's not right. Rest is a gift from God. It's a command from God. He knows the benefits of it and he wants that for us because he loves us. And in Jess Connolly's book, she talks about how chronic tiredness can actually be a sign that we are not living in alignment with God's rhythms and we are taking on burdens that aren't meant for us. I remember reading that in her book and just really having to pause and take inventory of my own life, because there have been so many times when I felt fatigue and exhausted, and I just have to ask myself, what is making me so tired? Am I doing too much? Am I saying yes to too much? Is there something that I need to let go of? I just want to tell you straight up, if there's too much on your plate to where you feel sleep is what has to get pushed to the back burner and sacrificed so that you can get all of these other things done, something is out of alignment. And I tell you that with so much love, but we've got to get real about it. God would not ask you to take on all of these other things if it meant pushing aside taking care of your mind and body and soul and spirit. Like as a whole, we can't do our work well if we are not rested. It's important. It matters. And I know I've said that 100 times already, and I'll probably say it 100 more times. But to me, this was the realization that actually got me serious about taking care of my body in this area, because I just noticed like the effects physically of not getting sleep, but also mentally for me, what happens when I'm not rested. I'm just not my best self. And so really it's so important for us to pause and actually ask ourselves, what is causing us to be so tired? For me, I was struggling with adrenal fatigue and such high stress in my life that my body couldn't keep up. And so I was pretty much running around like a zombie, trying to keep up with my life and then not sleeping well at night. And then waking up exhausted again and going through this never ending cycle. And it's crazy. Actually, in the book, Why We Sleep, he talks about how we can't actually catch up from missed sleep. We just, like whenever you haven't slept well and you feel like you just can't catch up on sleep, it's because you actually can't. There's something that happens in your body where it's like, if you have gone a certain amount of days, I can't remember exactly what he says in the book, but it's like you've gone multiple days in a row with getting not good quality sleep. It basically adds up to going multiple days in a row without any rest at all. And that is just not good. Like that takes time off of our lives. It takes energy off of our lives. And it just really stifles our ability to show up in the world the way that God purposed and designed for us to, which may sound silly to you, but it really is connected. Like, I am just such a believer that if we don't steward our spirit, soul, and bodies well, then we won't have the ability to do all that God has planned for us to do the way that He designed for us to do it. It matters. It's important. Sleep deprivation really does impair our ability to fulfill our God-given roles and responsibilities effectively. Even in 1 Corinthians 6, let me pull up this verse. Okay, so 1 Corinthians 6, verses 19 and 20. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You are bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. It's something that we overlook a lot. It's something that we don't talk a lot about in church. It's because we don't want to step on people's toes. It's because we don't want to offend people, whatever it may be. Of course, health is not one size fits all. Everybody has different needs. Everybody has different stories. Every body has different stories. But we cannot deny the fact that the way God designed our bodies to be vessels and the way He has commanded us to take care of our bodies, to steward them well, we can't separate stewarding our spirit and our spiritual life from stewarding our bodies well, because they are connected. And actually understanding and honoring our body's need for sleep is part of honoring God's design for our bodies. Jess Connolly emphasizes the importance of not comparing ourselves to others because we all have our own unique needs for rest. So it's not one size fits all, but we are all commanded to steward our bodies well because it honors God. It's an act of worship. I mean, we're told in scripture to give our bodies as a living sacrifice to God. And if we're not stewarding our bodies well, I mean, I want to have something good to give the Lord. I want to take care of my body while I'm alive on earth the best that I can. And it's never going to be perfect. We're going to experience sickness, we're going to experience brokenness on earth. But to the best of our abilities, what if we just really got serious about taking care of ourselves? And I'm not saying getting obsessive. There's a difference between obsessing and idolizing health, physical health, and your body, and taking care of yourself out of a place of realizing that God loves you and you should be grateful for this body you've been given, even if it's not perfect, even if it's broken, even if it doesn't look like you want it to look. Those things are separate. And it may take a while for you to get to a place where you can undo the connection there. It did for me. I mean, y'all know I had years of eating disorders and body image issues, and I still struggle with body image issues from time to time. I feel like as women we all do. However, what's helping me and freeing me in a way that I had never experienced until recently is understanding how my body and how me stewarding my body well not only honors the Lord as an act of worship, but it allows me to be better equipped to parent better, to be a better mom, to be a better wife, to be a better friend, to show up in this space, to do my work more effectively. And I've just noticed in my own life, when I am not rested, when I have not slept well, I can't show up to those spaces effectively. Like I don't have as much to give when I haven't taken care of those things first, if that makes sense. So if you're hearing this and you're like, I'm hearing you, I could probably do a little better with prioritizing and being intentional about sleep and rest in my own life. That's okay. We are going to get into some practical ways that you can prioritize and be more intentional about rest in your life so that you are able to show up more effectively. Okay. So let's go to Matthew 6, verses 25 through 34. You've probably heard this chapter before, but let me just read it over us. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, or what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So don't worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? For pagans run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. So seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And you may be thinking, okay, well, what does this have to do with sleep? The reason I wanted to read that is because so much of my own struggle with prioritizing rest has come from this place of feeling like I have to hustle to keep things under control. I have to work and work and work to keep up. I have to do all of these things to make sure I'm not missing my chance, or I need to do more, to be more, all of these things. And that is just so backwards from what God wants for us. I think one of the most restful things we can ever experience as women of God is realizing He is taking care of us. There's nothing out of His view. There's nothing out of His control. He loves us. He wants us to be able to rest in His provision, His safety, the security of being in His hand. And I think sometimes we forget that. And that's when the anxiety, that's when the burnout, that's when the hustling and the striving kick it into full gear, because we just forget it's not up to us. We aren't the ones that run the show. It's not all dependent on us. We can take a load off. That verse in Matthew where he says, if you're tired, if you're weary, if you carry heavy burdens, come to me. I will give you rest. He wants to give us rest. He wants to give us peace. I love that verse, the one we just read. And there's another translation that says, why do you worry about what you will eat or drink or wear? Those are the thoughts that consume unbelievers. And it just hit me one day when I was reading that. I stress so much trying to figure out the how. Like, How are we going to get the bills paid? How are we going to get this? How is this going to work out? How are all these pieces going to come together? Those are the thoughts of people who don't have their faith in God. As believers, we should be able to rest knowing that our God is in control. We don't have to worry about those things. And it's hard. I'm telling you, I know it's easier said than done. And I'm telling you all of this out of love because I think God just wants us to get this to sink in so that we can actually live as people of rest, because the world doesn't need more believers who are running around anxious and busy and honestly just no different from the rest of the world. Can you imagine a world where believers were operating in peace, who were the most peaceful, rooted, rested people in the world? Like, to me, if I was an outsider, that's what I would want. If I had a relation, if I saw somebody who had a relationship with God and they were just at peace, and I'm not saying their life was perfect, but their approach to life and their response to their circumstances and their ability to just surrender allowed them to focus on taking care of their body, being present with their family, doing work effectively. That's what I would want. I don't know about you. That's what I would want. So we have a chance here as believers to model that for the world. And it's such a bummer to me that the church is so tired and burnt out, experiencing all these things the way the rest of the world is, because we have a God who has provided rest and actually built it into the rhythms of how he designed our bodies and our spirits to need rest and depend on him. I'm just saying, we have a chance here to tap into something that is really, really divine, like really, really miraculous that God created for us. And so many of us are just passing it by. We're like, yeah, no, I'm good. No, I'll just stay up. It's fine. Like I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'll catch up on sleep whenever my kids are older. We have this opportunity now and today to take advantage of this beautiful gift God has given us, which is just literally how he designed us. So let's talk about the practical stuff, okay? We've got to set some boundaries, right? We've got to create some spaces in our lives that promote rest and renewal. We've got to create margins. We've got to carve out areas where we actually are able to prioritize rest the way that God has designed us to. So obviously, like I mentioned, if there are other, sleep disorders, mental health issues, physical disorders and things that you need to talk to a doctor about, get that help. That has been a huge part of my healing journey. I'm actually working with Kelsey Chen, who has been on the podcast before. She's a Christian practitioner who's been helping me run labs, figure out my hormones, and helping me prioritize sleep. She's been talking to me about how I can manage my stress and how important it is, not just physically, but also spiritually, emotionally, mentally as well. Like holistically, it's all connected, like I said. So if you need help from a professional, there's no shame in that. Actually, I would say go for it if you're able to, because having that help and having someone show you things that maybe you can't see and connecting dots for you may even motivate you and encourage you even more to like give yourself permission to rest and maybe say no to some things so that you can say yes to getting better sleep and better rest in your life. So a couple of things, some tips for starting to improve sleep and getting into rhythms of rest are getting into a sleep schedule or routine, like something that's a rhythm that's consistent for you. For me, what this looks like is we got a Hatch alarm. Actually, it's on this side. We have a Hatch alarm clock somewhere back here. And it's so nice because it turns on a light in the morning with a soft sound that gets louder as it like kind of wakes you up. And so that goes off at the same time every morning. And then at night also you can time it to I think ours is at like 9:00. There's a light and a sound that goes on that tells us, okay, hey, it's time to wind down. So the Hatch is really expensive. We actually got this on accident. It's a long story. Like we have a small one, a sound machine for our daughter, and it broke. So we asked if we could get a replacement for it. And they were like, yeah, no problem. We'll send it. But they actually sent us the Hatch Restore. And I was like, this isn't the right thing, but okay. And they're like, oh, no problem. You can just keep it. So I was like, oh, well, that's nice. Anyway, so I'm not saying go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a fancy thing. I'm sure there are tons of other options, like maybe just setting your alarm for the same time every day. And it doesn't have to be drastic. Like I'm not talking set your alarm for 5:00. Just when do you usually wake up? If it's between the hours of like 7 and 8, can you start waking up at the same time? Like could you set an alarm for 7:30 every day so that your body gets into a routine? Because the cool thing is, well, kind of the bummer thing, but also the cool thing is our body can be retrained at any time. So you know how it goes. Like if you're in the habit of staying up late and then sleeping in, your body's just going to adjust to that rhythm. And it may take a little bit of effort to retrain yourself, but you can do it. So, right now, what I'm working on is waking up at the same time every day and trying to go to sleep at the same time every day. I don't have it perfect, but I'm trying to get at least somewhere in the same region of the hour where I can go to sleep and wake up every day. And that is helping a lot. And I feel like just having a little bit of consistency also just does so much for your mental health as well. Like for me, we've been out of a consistent routine for so long that I just needed some sort of consistency. So that is a huge thing that has helped. Also, helping yourself wind down and avoiding things like scrolling screens or like caffeine before bedtime. If there's something you can do that can kind of like, again, train your mind and condition you like, hey, it's winding down time, we're getting ready for bed, do that. So like for me, it's nothing fancy, but it's going and doing my skincare routine, brushing my teeth, braiding my hair before bed, and doing just a few things before I come and get in bed. Maybe I read a book to help myself wind down. Find something for you that you can do every evening that kind of trains your mind to know, okay, this is time to go to bed. Like we're starting the winding down routine. And it's this whole kind of like recreating habits, there's this sequence that happens with habits. I believe it's cue, routine, and reward. And we can get into that. That's a whole other conversation. But basically, if you train your mind to connect sleep to a certain action, it will help. So if there's something you can do, like for me, I said going to do my skincare routine and brushing my teeth. It's setting off this like, oh, yes, this means we're getting ready for bed. So for you, could that be doing some stretches or breathing? Could it be reading before bed? Could it be having a cup of tea or something, just something that's fun for you, something that's nice and calming for you to get yourself into that relaxation mode and preparing for sleep? And then also, like I said, avoiding things like caffeine, eating right before bed, staying up late watching TV or scrolling on your phone, things that are going to stimulate your brain to stay awake and like cause eye fatigue. Like, we don't want any of that. It's just not fun when you get in that cycle. So those kinds of things can really help retrain and rewire your brain to get ready for sleep. And then also, as much as you can, how can you best use your energy during the day so that you're ready for sleep at night? So like maybe don't take a 5-hour nap in the afternoon, because then you may end up staying up all night. So do what you can during the day to support yourself, use up your energy in healthy, productive ways. And then as you wind down in the evening, there's a natural progression where, your cortisol levels, which actually, this is a funny side note. I'm right now with Kelsey working on helping my body like repair my cortisol cycle, because right now my cortisol is basically like a flat line all day long and I have no energy in the mornings. For a healthy cortisol level, what should happen is when we wake up, we have energy to start our day. And then it should gradually taper off so that by the end of the day, we are ready for melatonin to kick in and send us off to dreamland. So helping yourself get into rhythms like that, where in the morning, you're waking up, you're ready to go, like having things even in the morning to help you wake up, just like you would in the evening to stimulate like that, hey, it's bedtime and winding down. Do the same things in the morning. What can you do in the morning? Maybe it's getting up and doing a short exercise, like maybe doing some squats or doing some stretches, or maybe it's going into the bathroom and doing your skincare routine again. Maybe it's going in the kitchen and making yourself like your juice or your breakfast that you're looking forward to. Something that for you can connect to the waking up and the going to sleep will really help a lot with creating those new rhythms and getting into new habits. And again, this is not one size fits all. You'll have to figure out what works best for you, but I promise you there's nothing like being well rested. Like you just feel so at peace. You just feel so energized and joyful. Like you just are able to soak in so much more of God's goodness when you are well rested. So I know this was kind of a lot all over the place, and there's so much more as well. Like I said, I will link the books that I referenced as well as a couple other resources if you're interested in learning more. But really, at the end of the day, I think we just really need to get into alignment with God's design for rest. We can't be so spread thin that we are tired and burnt out just like the rest of the world, because at that point, we're not representing God well. We're not representing the rest and the peace that He provides for the ones He loves. Let's do this. This is the year of getting good sleep and prioritizing rest, because when we are rested, we not only can enjoy more of God's goodness, but we are able to live from the overflow then and more effectively love others and effectively do our work, effectively parent, all of those things. That's all I've got for you today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, a little bit more practical, but I've really just enjoyed learning about this, and I hope that you have too. So that's it for today. I love you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune into another episode of the Byword Show. I love having you here, and I am truly so thankful for your support. Don't forget to share a screenshot of this episode to let me know you were here, and quick favor, if you enjoyed this episode, would you take a second to leave a review? It really helps our community grow. If you want more, you can shop my books Waking Up and Love Is at thehannahhughes.com or on Amazon, and be sure to join my email list for all the latest news. I can't wait to chat again soon, but in the meantime, be sure to come connect with me on social media, and remember, I'm cheering you on.